Well, welcome back once again to the Newsman Weekly podcast. Joining us now, as promised, we have Dean Kastran, Dale Powers, and McCray Martin. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for getting up so damn early. Now, most musicians are normally going to bed this time after late-night gigs, so I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here.
No, good morning. It's good to be here.
Well, Dean, I just found out you had a late-night gig in Pennsylvania.
Driving back from Pennsylvania, so yeah, I haven't been home that long, actually. So.
See, Hayden complains if he doesn't get a full 12 hours, but that's how young people are. You know, they got to have lots of sleep. All right, we got to start at the beginning. Now, McCray, tell us about this new song you wrote. I think it's titled "Set Me Free."
That's correct.
How did it come together, and what made you want Dean and Dale and Tim Powers, who's not with us today, but how'd you want those guys to be a part of it?
Well, basically, one of the things that I try to do with the music that I record is create some sort of archive for the people that I respect the most and I feel should be documented on recording, whether or not they have been already or not. So two of the people that I really wanted on this recording was Dale and Dean, as well as Tim. What I wanted to try to do with this was go back and sort of reevaluate the history of the Ohio Express, because I knew that they had played on some of those recordings, despite some of the more popular recordings not having them featured on it. So I went back and I paid extra attention to what they had wrote and recorded. I studied that for about a month straight, listening to about nothing but that. And
Dean's shaking his head like, dude,
you poor man.
Dude, you need to get life.
You should have come see me before that.
No, it was really informative.
We love him for it, honest.
I sort of digested that through my own compositional approach. And in about an hour, what came out was the song that you hear on the recording. So I got them in the studio. I'm not sure if they knew what I was trying to do yet. And I just tried to put as much love and respect into it as humanly possible.
So a month's worth of investigation and an hour to write. That sounds about right. Now, Dean, Dale, what was it about McCray's song that made you want to jump in and record with him along with your former bandmate? It was Tim Corwin, right?
Yeah.
Was there anything in that song when you heard it or read it that made you think about the Ohio Express days of the 60s?
Well, I think McCray he brought out the garage band sound that was so popular. It's actually where it started, was in the 60s. And I could hear the garage band sound, and I think that's really what he was going for, and he really did an excellent job of capturing that sound. I got to use a 12-string Vox teardrop guitar from the 60s on it. And
where did you get a 12-string guitar these days?
Oh, I bought it it's a 67, and I think I bought it in 67 or 68.
Wow.
So it's somewhat of a collector's item, and I got to play that on that. I think it has original strings on it too. After
I can't play a 1-string guitar, much less 12 now. Dean, what did you think when you heard the song?
To be totally honest, I had no idea what McCray was up to. He asked me to come in and lay down a bass part for a song that he was doing, and I didn't have or know of the vision that he had for it. So I showed up, and Dale was there, and Mike Martin was there, and we played this part because he's asked me to play bass, for some other projects, and I thought it's just another something else that he wants me to do. So I went in the studio and played the song. I listened to it at home and actually thought the bass part that was already on it was good. But so I went in and did it and thought that was it. Well, then later he came back and said, "Hey, I want Dale to come in and lay down a vocal part." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Thought he wanted like background harmonies or something like that, which he did. But then he assigned us each either a verse or a pre-chorus to do. Again, I thought that was like the end, and lo and behold, then he's come and take some pictures at the Renaissance Theater, so we went and did that. I thought, oh, well, this is nice, a little reunion of the guys in the studio. And this took place over, a couple months?
Yeah, something like that.
So then the video came out, and I mean, I was as surprised as anybody that he put all that together. So.
Yeah, we're going to put the video when this podcast drops. There'll be a video with it, so anybody that wants, because you put the video on YouTube. So that's one thing I know how to do with our system is drop YouTube embed, so I can put that in. So anybody that's listening, go back and look at the story on the Richland Source website, and we'll have it there. But all right, now take us into the studio. How would you describe the creative chemistry that developed during the recording process? Did you just play and sing the song as it was written, or some creative inputs? You guys said, what if we tried this? What if we did that? Or is it like, okay, I'll play it the way it's written?
What? Go ahead.
Well, when I first wrote it, I had a pretty good idea of what I was trying to accomplish. When I created the demo, I was actually playing in the style that I thought these guys would play in. So they were definitely in mind from the beginning. I think a lot of it was sort of just from the demo, but there was definitely room for experimentation within all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely gotten new life since I first wrote it. Mm-hmm.
Now, from you guys' standpoint, did you feel comfortable trying a little something different, or you just, you know what, this is the way he wrote it, this is the way I'll play it?
I think it was impromptu. We didn't really... McCray pretty much knew what he wanted, and I think he had the thing laid out pretty much the way it turned out. What was fun and exciting, especially for me, was the background parts that Dean and I got in and did. And there were a couple of times we had background parts, excuse me, that sounded, I thought like they were like Who, from the 60s Who background parts, and also there was a couple moments when we just sounded like, we'd say, wow, that sounds like the Who or something. And that was a creative part of it that was fun. But McCray pretty much had in his head what, and when you're producing a song that you've written, that's what you'll do when you go in the studio. You'll put it together, what you hear in your head, and you got to get everybody else on board. Right, McCray? I mean, that's the way it works. It's yeah, so he pretty much knew what he wanted, and he just directed the movie, and we just jumped in and had a lot of fun.
Now, obviously, there's a slight age difference between McCray and Dean and Dale. So all of you grew up in Richland County during really different musical times. How did those different influences shape this project, or when you came to do it? Obviously, McCray, you talked about you went back and listened and watched and that kind of thing. But talk to me about how maybe just different music has impacted you guys along the way. And I know Dean and Dale, you guys have a lot longer time. I'm not asking you to identify every band at this point that influenced you, but early influences for all of you.
Well, in a nutshell, in my first 2 years of high school, I was a really good student. And when the Beatles came out, that all went away. So life changed, in every sense. I mean, anybody that lived through that and doesn't admit it is not all there, but it became our quest to be like the Beatles, look like the Beatles, sound like the Beatles. Although we really didn't play any Beatles songs, there was something that was like a sacrilege to play a Beatles song and not have it sound great. Now today that's different. We can take some liberties in doing that, but so I mean the influence primarily for me was the Beatles and other British invasion artists at that time, like Peter and Gordon and Billy J. Kramer and the Dave Clark Five and the Rolling Stones and so on and so forth. So I won't name them all like you said. But,
yeah, we didn't even get to Jimi Hendrix yet, but that's a whole other influence.
A
whole different kind of influence.
Yeah, I wasn't that influenced.
What about you, Dale?
Well, my dad was a guitar player, and I picked up some things from him. And but he was into country. I really wasn't into country, and I started playing at 12 years old. So he was a big influence. And then '64, as Dean said, that changed the world. That was the music revolution. And so when you went to school that Monday morning after the first Ed Sullivan appearance of the Beatles, you walked in and you just sensed there was a whole different feeling going on, and it was. I was a greaser. I had my hair combed back. When I walked in Monday morning, it was combed down like the mop tops. And so yeah, it was the Beatles. I mean, it was they were called the Four-Headed Monster, and everywhere you'd see one, you'd see the other three, and it was so cool because they were a band that was united. They wrote, they sang well, they were produced well, and it was a unique time in history, probably like none other that I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, I don't think that younger people who didn't. I mean, I was really young then, but I remember the Ed Sullivan Show, and then the first concert was at Shea Stadium in New York City. And if you want to experience that in some way, go on YouTube, look it up. You literally have a hard time hearing the band, and it's not because they don't have a great sound system. The girls there, especially, never stop screaming the entire time. It's just incredible to see that kind of, and obviously they had a small stage set up in the infield, and it's like, they didn't have a huge sound system, but it's just amazing to see the reaction. Now, obviously, McCray, you grew up in a different era.
Yeah.
So what were your musical influences like? You didn't have the Beatles, so who did you have?
Well, I'm inspired by basically everything I listen to, regardless of genre. But growing up, I found myself drawn to like the 60s, 70s classic rock stuff. So I was listening to the Beatles when I was growing up. I tried to sink my teeth into anything that I could find. I was big into Pink Floyd, too.
Oh, I love Pink Floyd.
My father is a jazz musician, so I eventually got into jazz.
But when I saw you playing at the Phoenix last week or so, it was a jazz set.
That's right.
Sounded really good.
Yeah, and that's always a fun time. But I feel just because of how my journey has progressed, I still feel like the 60s, 70s rock sound is sort of like my home. And I think that's kind of why this all works so well. And that's sort of the goal with the Bopper Brothers band project, which I'm a part of, which is the reason why this is happening. We try to respect and recreate the sounds of the 60s and 70s as closely as possible while throwing in some new things, but with our original compositions. And it's really a pleasure to get to work with these guys who have been a part of it for real.
So if you had missed anything from the 60s, these guys could tell you, hey, that's authentic, or that wasn't the 60s. But you're still a student, right? I mean, you're a student at Capitol still?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So you're doing all this like as a full-time student. So
that's right.
And I think music is what you're studying down there?
Jazz studies.
Now, when you go back, I assume you're on summer break.
That's right.
When you go back, what's that mind shift going to be like from doing all these things and now all of a sudden, it's class time again, and I have to sit and listen to somebody teach me about a music thing that I've been doing really well?
I'd say it all goes together. I think of music as one big thing. I don't really differentiate too much. Of course, there are genre differences, but I don't really let that get to me. I just think about how I can use these tools in whatever kind of music I can create. I'm always thinking about everything a little bit in the back of my mind. I know last semester I was trying to balance all the classes and like beginning this new record that I'm working on. And I mean, yes, it is different mindsets, trying to like practice and woodshed all these jazz licks while trying to become Phil Spector, I guess. Yeah. But it helps each other. It sort of benefits each other.
It was weird. I would every summer when I was going to OU, majoring in journalism, I worked at a newspaper during the summer, and it would be difficult that first week back in Athens, sitting in a classroom after spending 3 months working with people who do this for a living, and now I've got this professor talking to me about things that may or may not fit in today's journalism world. So yeah. I imagine you might experience that in some way from you're sitting with these guys or you're playing with professional musicians, and now you're listening to a guy talk music theory, and in the back of your mind maybe it's like, okay, I get, I want to pass this class, but that's not really the way it's actually working out in the field these days.
Well, it's kind of funny because some of the professors at Capitol I do play gigs with.
Okay.
I've done that before I went to Capitol. I hired them for some of my gigs. It's great.
That would guarantee a good grade, I would think.
I'd hope so.
if you're getting them paying gigs. But all right, I got to ask, Dean and Dale, you guys have been doing this a long time. I mean, twice as long as Hayden Gray's been alive, and Hayden can't talk right now, so I'll just throw that out there. Is there, as you think about it, a single performance or a single recording session from your long careers that still stands out as kind of a defining moment? Either, you know what, we've made it, or damn, that really felt good.
No, you ask a tough question.
You know, that's why I get paid so much money, you know?
That's a hard one. That's
well, I mean, I pick out 2 or 3, just things that really in a long career that stand out for you.
Well, you know, just as far as history goes, we opened for The Who 3 times, maybe 4 times.
Yeah.
We're not totally sure. But
it was the 60s.
So that was the
60s.
That was a big deal. It was a monumental thing. Do I remember opening for The Who? I really, I don't. But it's kind of one of those things that stick in your mind.
You got a poster somewhere that says, it says that.
We played at Carnegie Hall. There's not a lot of people that that I know that can say that, but do I remember it? I don't, but it probably was good. I guess it was fun.
I would agree. I think that the Who would probably. I mean, that's my all-time favorite rock and roll band. They're incredible to see in person. I mean, it was almost a freak show. I mean, it was hard to believe. They said when James Brown was on Shindig, when he come out and did his show, everybody, no matter what they were doing, stopped and watched, and that's the way the Who was. Those are special moments. They were so unique. And but one of the things that I really remember, I don't know if you remember this, Dean, one of the best jam sessions I'd ever been in was when we were on the road and we met up in Madison, Wisconsin with the Music Explosion, the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, and Ohio Express. And it was there were some really good musicians. The Fruit Gum Company had a really good guitar player, a good lead singer, and of course Tudor, a guitar player, but the Explosion. And we set up that morning and did a sound check, and then we just went back to the motel room. So we just hung around and jammed for a while. One of the most incredible jam sessions I'd ever been in, because it was just so loose and it was fun. And we were on the road and met up, and you remember that, Dean?
No. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't remember much from my 20s either. So
there's highlights, but
One of our favorite sayings to each other is, "Was I there?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you remember when you talk about the Who? Members of the band. What do you remember anything about the personalities? Because they were big ones in that band.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
I remember being in a locker room or a dressing room. The coolest place we played with the Who was in Miami, as far as what I think. But the stage was out in the ocean, and the seating was like an amphitheater. Seating was on shore. Okay. So I don't remember how we got out to the stage. It must have been a catwalk or a tunnel or something. But so downstairs was the dressing room, and Keith Moon and Roger Daltrey were very friendly, and they were hanging out with us downstairs in this dressing room. And John Entwistle and Pete Townsend were offstandish. I don't know if they didn't trust us, but they were real hard to communicate with. So that's probably the most memory of all that I have.
Well, see, for you guys, it was the Beatles. For me, growing up in the South, the first thing that really jumped in my heart was Lynyrd Skynyrd back in the day. And I remember stories and reading stories. They opened for the Who. And the Who, I think it might have been Daltrey standing off stage, and he turned around to somebody and said, "Damn, those boys can play." And after, I think, just a few of those, the Who said, "Yeah, thanks for coming. Let's get somebody else to open, because you guys are kind of like, people are wanting encores from you, and we're ready to come on. So let's get somebody else."
Yeah.
Staying with you guys, what's the most unexpected thing during a live performance? I know I do community theater, and you never know what's going to happen when you're standing in front of a live audience. Think about that in your heads for a second. Either a song that went south, a show that went great, just a moment during a live show that you didn't expect. And I know that's kind of another one of those tough questions, but think about something during a live performance that maybe stuck out, still stands, and it could be anything even recently. I know you played last night in Pennsylvania was with the Circle, right?
Yeah.
And anything you can think about there.
No, well, we learned a lesson. A big lesson was that the monitor system on stage was horrible, and it was very hard to hear what we were doing. So it's easy to in your head think, well, this is terrible out front, but you have to separate that what you're hearing on stage may not be terrible out front. And we had a lot of comments afterwards how great it sounded out front. So it's kind of a discipline thing that no matter what you sound like on stage, it may not.
You're hoping it doesn't sound
You're
like
hoping,
that.
yeah, but in a lot of cases, most cases, it's totally different.
Dale, what about you?
Well, recently, a few years ago, Bob Hope, when we were at the Holiday Inn in Mansfield, and had a band called the Race Band, and we were in the lounge playing, and all of a sudden, Phil Messer, who was taking Bob Hope around then,
Former police chief. Phil
yeah,
Messer,
yeah, they were walking through the lobby of the Holiday Inn, and all those years that we'd been on stage, and I was playing with Dane Donahue, and we're both frontmen, and all of a sudden the door opens up, and it was so cool because the light from the hall came in, and it was just like the spotlight was on, and it was Bob Hope, and the door opened up, and we just were so stage struck that we were just standing there going, "Hi, Bob, hi," and we didn't even think to invite him up. And Phil Messer, I talked to him afterwards, and he goes, "Oh, he would have come up." Said I was taking him for a walk, and he said, "I'm not ready to go back to the motel room." He said, "So let's take a walk." And he walked by, and he goes, "What's this rock and roll thing going on in there?" And Phil says, "That's our local band, And he stuck his head in, and he stood there, and we could have probably got him up there to do, some of his jokes or whatever. And we were here. We are all these years later, and we were starstruck, and we still laugh about it today.
Now, I know, McCray, when you started to do this song, I think when you and I talked for a story that I did, you thought you had a drummer to play, but then you needed a different drummer. You needed a drummer, and you got Tim involved. So talk about how that went and getting Tim back involved with these two guys.
Sure. So it was either right before I started at Capitol or the first week that I started at Capitol. I came home that weekend. I usually come home during weekends because I play pipe organ at my church. And the Heart of the City cruise-in was happening, and the Ohio Express plays for that. And I thought, hey, I kind of want to see what's going on with this, see what's going on. And one of the guys who was working the sound of the event was Ed Gutschall, one of my good friends from many years back. And he gave me the opportunity to meet Tim because he knew Tim. So he called Tim over, and I knew about Tim because of the Ohio Express, and Tim knew about me because I played in the Artistic Jazz Orchestra at the Renaissance Theater. So there was a sort of mutual respect there. And great guy. I loved talking to him, but that was about it for a while. And then when I realized that the position was open for the potential reunion to happen, I immediately contacted Ed Gutschall to see if he had Tim's contact. And in about the span of a day or two, he got it to me, and I reached out, and Tim was in love with the idea as soon as I asked him. So it took a little bit before we could get him in, but we got him in the studio, and he was really eager to play drums because we wanted him to play drums, and he hadn't played drums in about 40 years, but I was surprised because it sounded fine. And once I got everything back after he had left and I mixed everything together, at that moment I realized this was really, really special.
Yeah.
And I still can't believe it.
Now, obviously you can play a lot of music, you play a lot of musical instruments, but where did you learn how to record and mix and combine all this together? Where do those skills come from?
So I've been making music since I was 3. I started playing drums sort of accidentally in the middle of a church service. Our worship team was missing our drummer one service, and I just randomly walked up and started playing. And shortly after that, my parents were getting me all these musical equipment, like a drum kit and microphones and things. So I vividly remember one evening when I was 3, with a guitar that I had tuned to an open chord, like a pair of bongos, my microphone. I had begun a multi-track recording. McCray Martin sings the Beatles for about 30 minutes. It's not great, but it was really informative for a 3-year-old, and I've just continued doing that for many years. I'm basically self-taught.
Okay.
I did take a music technology class at Capitol recently, but a lot of it is just trial and error.
Yeah, the technology continues to change and evolve. And when I started in the newspaper business, for example, we were using typewriters, and you guys were using old amps that you had to plug in, and you had cords that restricted movement. So technology has changed for Dean and Dale, you guys, over the years as well, I'm sure.
Oh, my, has it. Especially in the recording studios. Oh, they can do things in there now that's just, when we started out, we had no pitch control on anything back then. So if we learned a Beatles song, I would take my finger on the turntable and slow it down and try to listen, but, it changes the pitch. So now you're in a different chord. And so, things today, you have pitch. I still can't figure out how the pitch control, you turn it down and it stays in the same key. We were Fred Flintstone. It was pretty prehistoric what we had. Today it's just incredible. You can go on and I have people say, would you teach my son or daughter a little guitar? And I said, something, you have the best teachers out there today on the computer, and they slow it down and they step by step. And so the technology has just run away. It's really fascinating, isn't it, Dean?
Oh yeah. The equipment that's out there is it weighs less for old guys to carry around, and that's a big benefit. I like to do, if I'm in town, I play it on our worship team at church, and there's no amplifiers. You use in-ear monitors, and that's just a whole different approach to it all. So I really enjoy doing that.
If I had asked either one of you guys in the 60s, we're still going to be talking about music, and you're still going to be playing music in 2026 in Mansfield.
Oh.
What would you have said?
Are you crazy?
No, I think of John Lennon when they said, so do you see yourself doing this down the road? And he goes, I don't think after 35 we'll probably be doing whatever. And that's, yeah.
And yet here we are. You're both still playing actively,
yes,
in different groups, different venues, different places. Does it ever get old?
No.
No, if it's not fun, then it's time to quit doing it, and then
Yeah.
everything else will slow down too. So, yeah.
Now let's talk about the video that we're going to put into the story so people can go and view it. But McCray, when you went to pull that video together, you've got pictures, you got video, and you've got some special effects, 60s type stuff in the background. How did that come together? And Dean and Dale, what did you guys think when you saw the finished product?
Oh, blown away. I thought, man, he really, really did a good job. He does his homework. Yeah. He teaches us stuff about us that we forgot or
Was
we don't
I there?
know.
Yeah. There were some still shots in that video that I'm not sure I've ever seen before. So I don't.
Yeah.
I need to get him aside and find out where he got those. I don't know if Tim was part of that, because Tim was the photographer in the band back when we traveled, so he was always taking pictures. So I'm sure he has a plethora of memories and pictures that we've never seen.
How did you pull it all together, McCray?
So all the old pictures, aside from the ones that I got from Dale and Dean, were basically just me looking around Google and Facebook and seeing what all I could find that looked interesting. And there's a lot more that I didn't actually put in the video because there wasn't time for it. But I wanted to do a mix of the old and the new, so I put a bunch of pictures from the 60s, and I believe there's one from the 80s. And then I put the pictures of us in the studio and the pictures that we took at the Renaissance. And I sort of mixed that in with some video that we took in the studio. And then, as far as I'm aware, the only 2 videos publicly available of the Ohio Express playing on television back in the 60s. And I sort of synced those up to the tempo of the song and edited around a little bit. And I think it came out better than I thought it would.
Yeah, when I saw it and I saw the video and you did a great job of syncing because it really looks like
Yeah.
I was like those guys could be playing this song right here. And
Yeah.
it just worked out really well.
Do you have our American Bandstand video? Because that wasn't one of the ones you used.
I don't think so.
We'll have to get that to you.
Thank you.
Now, since you mentioned American Bandstand, I was going to ask about that, but it could have been one of those things that you guys might think, was I there? So, what do you remember about that American Bandstand performance and being in kind of on national? Was that the first time on national television?
Well, we were on other regional shows like Dick Cavett and Lloyd Thaxton, and Upbeat out of Cleveland. So I don't know how far out those reached, but
this was Dick Clark. I mean, this was
Dick Clark.
Yeah, this was.
So we
Was it in Philadelphia at the time?
No, it was L.A.
Oh, L.A. Oh.
It was L.A. and we missed our airplane flight to go out there, and for reasons I won't divulge. But
we can only imagine
to protect the, Anyway, so we hustled and got the next flight out there. So the plan was to get out there ahead, and you have time to change clothes and go in the green room and do all the cool stuff that you should do. Well, instead we missed the plane, and we got out there just in the nick of time to walk in the studio and in our street clothes. And Dick Clark greeted us. He wasn't happy. He was right.
Yeah, his son there too.
He was pretty stern about it.
Yeah.
And let us.
Do you remember what he said?
I don't.
It wasn't what he said. It was just we
How
could
he
tell
said,
that he was not happy with us,
Yeah.
and he brought his son because his son loved Yummy Yum, and he came
Yeah.
to meet us, and it was just a.
Yeah. So the next,
You guys come stumbling in just before the show.
That's why they called us the Bad Boys of Bubblegum.
I love that. The Bad Boys of Bubblegum.
So the next thing you know, he's introducing us, and he's like, "Oh, my son was here, and he loved it." And he was just a complete change, Mr. Nice Guy, and obviously, he's professional. He wasn't gonna.
Well, we did something I think that very few people have done. We made him mad
Yeah,
because he's pretty happy guy.
You made Dick Clark mad.
yeah. So
But you got through it.
we got through it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what once that show aired, because I assume it wasn't live, was it? So it wasn't a live show. But once that show aired, it's like poof. Now you guys are even bigger than you were. What was the post American Bandstand life like?
Do you remember when we saw it first? We bought a copy of a VHS
Yes.
tape 20 years later. That's the first time we saw that. It was because it was in '68 we were on the show. In 1988 we wrote to the Dick Clark Productions and said, can you sell us a copy of that performance? And they did. I think it was at that time it was a lot of money. It was $100, and we each threw in $50, and I wanted the whole show, but it was just our segment.
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool. So after we did it, we just laughed and joked about, hey, we were late, and Dick Clark was mad, and life went on. So
But you remember when I came to your house to watch it, when we put it in, we looked at each other. Wow, it's in black and white. We'd forgot that.
yeah.
It was a black and white world then.
I don't remember what anybody said about it back then, when it was actually on. I don't know if it was on live or just slightly delayed, but I don't remember anybody talking about it, including our parents. So.
All right, now there's probably a lot of, I won't say a lot because I don't exactly know who listens to this show. We have a lot of people, but I don't know the demographics. But there may be young musicians listening. What advice, and I'll let all three of you respond to this, what advice do you give young musicians in Richland County who are hoping to build a career in music or at least have some success playing music? I mean, this is your chance to advise young skulls full of mush out there and what they might want to focus on or do to be a musician.
If there's anything I learned, it's take as many chances as you possibly can. Because even if there was no confidence behind this idea to work with these guys, I still would have asked, and it probably still would have happened either way. You don't get anywhere unless you try. And I try to put as much effort in as possible to do as many different things as possible. And it definitely pays off. Yeah.
Well, I think I like what Phil Kagi said. He said, don't pack your stuff up and go off to the big city to make it big because you end up waiting on tables or whatever. And so many people out there have that dream, and they go, and they get disappointed. And I like what he said. He said the success is doing what you love to do, and it makes you happy, because later on down the road you realize that the real success was in the happiness, and that's I would definitely go along with that. It's here's the thing, even if you do make it big, the sacrifices of being out there. We did one-nighters for a couple years, and it's we were young, and it got to be something that we, after a while, really didn't enjoy anymore much. And we came home, and we've had a blast since. I mean, at our age, we're still having a great time doing it. So that's success, yes.
Dean?
I don't know. I don't know what I run into people that, want to play music, and, I guess it's just obvious things like you're going to have to practice, you're going to have to, work and stuff, and it may not come easy. Back when we were doing it, when we were kids, we didn't have video games, we didn't have YouTube to learn how to play, but we didn't have all the distractions, so we literally just spent hours, and either alone or together, working on what we were doing and on our craft. And I mean, that really doesn't change. It can't change. It's still something you have to invest the time into if you want to have any level of expertise at all.
So put down the video games if you want to play music, and actually play music. That's kind of the gist. All right, guys, we'll close with this. Looking ahead, are there more collaborations, recordings, performances in the works that fans should be excited about from you guys?
One of the singles that we're going to try to do next is with Dane Donahue.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to try to pay tribute to that whole yacht rock era, and try to dig into that style a little bit. And with all of this, we're working on our next album, The Bopper Brothers. It's going to be called Kaleidoscope, and it's the follow-up to our first album, No Way to Go. It's a little bit more colorful. Our album cover was black and white. This time it's going to feature as many different colors as we possibly can. And we're just trying to get the same energy that we did last time, but see what we can do with it that's new.
So what's the biggest difference? And I hear the term yacht rock a lot. I think I've talked to Dale and Dean. I've talked to you guys about yacht rock. And what's the biggest difference when you go to write yacht rock versus what you were doing in the '60s? I mean, describe that for us. If you can describe a sound.
I'm still trying to figure it out. My wife asked me the other day, "What is yacht rock?" I don't know if they just took a collaboration of a lot of different songs, whether it's Jimmy Buffett or it's I don't know.
I don't think yacht rock is a sound. I think it's a feeling or a thought, I guess, because I think most of the yacht rock I hear is based off the idea of like sailing away from the problems and all the stuff like that. Of course, it's the '70s soft rock thing,
right?
But it could be a bunch of different sounds. Like currently, the Bopper Brothers are working on a song called The Sailing Song, which has that same lyrical theme, but musically it's basically the Flying Burrito Brothers and Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Nice.
So, yeah, it could be anything.
Can't wait to hear that.
Yeah. That's what they asked Jimmy Buffett once. They said, "Where's Margaritaville?" And he goes, "It's wherever the hell you want it to be." No, one of my favorite Buffett songs talking about that is "Lovely Cruise." It was a lovely cruise, and that's kind of. I think I'm going to have that at my funeral. So, Dean, would you perform that at my funeral for me? It's been a lovely cruise. All right, gentlemen, it's been a lovely conversation. Thanks for getting up so damn early to come in and do this with us. I was excited when McCray confirmed everybody was going to be here, and we are going to wrap up today's show on that note. So, guys, Dean Kastran, Dale Powers, McCray Martin, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And best of luck. We look forward to the next music, wherever it comes from, when you guys are involved. All right, for now, thanks again to all of you for listening to the Newsman Weekly. I'll be back in a second to put a bow on this week's episode, but until then, please remember what author Mark Twain once said: "If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything."